name is Ellen. I'm one of the co-executive directors of Hollywood Fringe. Woo! My other, can you hear me? Yeah. Great. My other co-executive director, Lois, is over here. She's on the chat for anybody that's joining us on the live stream. And today's panel works a little bit differently than other panels because we kind of reworked it. We are going to go over for about 45 minutes some like definitions and some like fundraising things that are like kind of specific to fundraising for theater. And then we're gonna have a panel come up for the second half of it at 7:45. And then we're gonna discuss like best practices when it comes to how they did their fringe shows. So that's how today is going to work, and I'm excited to get into it. Just the reason that, actually first I'm going to get into some introductions, get into some announcements, and then I'm going to do like a little overview of like our fundraising history and kind of like our practice on how we do things. So, hi, I'm Ellen. A visual description for everybody is that we do a visual description for people who are blind or low vision who are on our live stream or in the room with us. That way they can see who's talking and have some context clues. I am a white woman. I have brown hair with bangs. I'm wearing a black shirt that has these like kind of psychedelic acid stains on them and some white boots. And I'm sitting on a colorful stage set. There's some white and yellow panels behind me, and there will be 2 people joining me later that will do that as well. My pronouns are she and they, and before we begin, I do want to do a land acknowledgement. The Hollywood Fringe acknowledges that we are on the unceded lands of the Tongva, Quiche, Gabrielinos, and Gabrielinos peoples. Our statement serves as a practice as we commit to furthering our connection to Indigenous communities past, present, and emerging. Everything is being live streamed here. So if I say something today that you're like, okay, I need to like go back to that, great. You have it. Everything's going to be posted. Everything is live for you so that you have some of those touchstones as you're going through this process, as well as there's going to be like a kind of 2 blog posts that I'm going to talk about today that have all of this information typed out for you as well. So you have kind of another way to engage with some of the information I'm about to present. Before I go like into a bunch of the nitty gritty, I want to give some like fringe announcements. That way we can, I'll let you know what we're doing. My brain. By the way, I'm extremely tired. And I know that you all are extremely tired too. It is 7 p.m. on a Sunday, so like give yourself a little hug for being here and doing this, because it's not easy to be a theater maker. It's not easy to be somebody who's like working all of the time. I know all of you have outside jobs. This is the first year that Lois and I don't have an outside full-time job outside of Fringe. So we know how hard you are all working to be able to present your art. And so the fact that you're making it here is incredible. Okay. Upcoming town halls and workshops. So town halls are actually more like this, where Lois and I spew information at you for 2 hours, and they're so important to go to. Because even if you think you know how to do Fringe, Fringe changes every year, and we update like our practices every year, and it's really a good time for you to be able to do some touchstones and be like, okay, yes, I do know how I'm doing that, or also get some reminders of like, yeah, I totally forgot about that. So if you're not going to go to anything, please go to the town halls. Our workshops are incredible as well. That's where you're going to get a lot of insight from past Fringe participants. So the 2 participants that are going to be here today have won Fringe Awards. Like they did all the things that you want to do, and so you're going to be able to hear from their perspectives as well. We have all of our town halls are ASL interpreted. If you do need an ASL interpreter for any other event, you just need to reach out to us within 72 hours at support@hollywoodfringe.org. We need 72 hours to make sure that somebody's available. So please, if you need that, please reach out to us. Okay, I got that. Got important dates and deadlines. February 1st, registration opened. Phew, we did it. Jesus. You do not need to register right away, but here's some benefits to doing so. When you register, you're on our radar, which means that we know that you're doing the Fringe, and we know like if you haven't booked a venue, we're gonna be able to see it and be like, why haven't you booked a venue? It's like March 30th, you know, things like that. So registering is like a great way for you to make sure that the Fringe staff is kind of seeing what you're doing. Second is that it makes sure that you're on that participant newsletter. So we're starting our participant newsletters I think the week after this week. So that'll be like a really good resource where it'll be like, hi participants, here's all the things you have to remember. And those don't go out to general, because general is where all of our ticketing and info goes out, and that's really more where things go. Yes. Oh yeah, good point. No, you do not. So you can register or book your venue in either order. So both of those are different. So you do your registration with us and your venue booking with your venue, and they're separate things, and they can happen in either order. We recommend actually generally that you register as soon as possible, but we also know that some people are waiting on fundraising. So we also know that some people are waiting on it today. So if you're like, Ellen, I'm not gonna register until April 1st, that's cool, that's fine, I get it. The registration deadline, however, is April 15th. So after registering after April 15th, that's when you're not going to be put into the printed guide. And the printed guide goes out to all of the coffee shops, the restaurants, the bars, the Hollywood areas to get other people in to see your show. So it's like, why register after the deadline to be in one of the biggest marketing things? You can, obviously, but it's one of the biggest things that we do for the festival, and it's one of the ways that you can get that outside audience. So we really don't recommend that you register after that. April 20th is your guide proof deadline. And it's gonna be so confusing, and like you don't even have to write these down. We're gonna say these at you a million times. We're gonna email these at you a million times. If you're registered, you're gonna start getting the emails that are like, hey, you have a month. Hey, you have this much time. But what it means to be your guide proof deadline, that's for like when you're gonna get sent like a proof, and you're gonna be like, great. That's what's going to happen. And that's also your last day to buy your ad and proof your ad. So if you do want to buy an ad in the Fringe Guide, that's the last day for that. All of this, we're going to go over much more in detail in our next town hall. So please don't even worry if you're like, this makes no sense to me. Read your participant packet, which is at hollywoodfringe.org/participants, and start to kind of read into some of these, and you're going to get those definitions there. And we're just going to talk about it a lot. So you're gonna start to know in your blood what that means. May 1st, tickets go on sale. June 4th to the 11th, we have our previews. Previews are the exact same as the normal Fringe, except for it's previews. And so they're not a part of our official dates. They're not as like heavily marketed. It is that time for you to kind of put up your show, get the press review, make sure that you have that stuff in before that major run of the festival. Nobody has shows on June 12th because it is our opening night party at the co-produced by the LA LGBT Center. And it is going to be a blast. It is so much fun every year. It is a really beautiful day for all of us to be in community and celebrate all of the work that you all have been putting into it. The 13th through the 30th, that's our official festival. And this year, our award ceremony is on the Monday after the Fringe. So instead of it being on that Sunday when we still have shows, it'll be on Monday night. And so it's a great time. Even if you're like not into awards, like for me, that's not really my thing, but I enjoy just the party aspect of it. It's a wonderful last celebration together. We don't have many rules at Fringe, but we do take our code of conduct extremely seriously. If you register as a project, you and your team will be held accountable for your actions as you participate within our festival, as you should be in any professional environment. Our full code of conduct is available at hollywoodfringe.org/conduct. Remember to share the community ethos and code of conduct. Yeah, please come in. With your team, as that's part of who you're responsible for as the primary participant. All right, that's enough about all of these little announcements. We're going to get more into detail about all of these things. Please keep coming to our workshops. Please keep coming to our town halls. We're going to repeat some stuff over and over, but in every one there's a little nugget of things that you haven't heard yet. So it's important. Okay, could you raise your hand if this is your first time doing Hollywood Fringe? Look at that. See, you're not alone. It is really this wonderful community that comes together every year, and it's so beautiful to see so many new participants joining in our community. We will try to work with you every step so that this doesn't become super overwhelming, but it is a journey that we're all going to be on together. So if you're like, what is Fringe? We're that open access annual community-derived performing arts festival every June. Enough about us. Let's chat budgeting. I just read something and then I went, oh, why am I reading that? So just for you guys to know where my brain is at right now, I started to read that and I went, I already said that. Okay, so budgeting. So I think it's really important. So sorry. I'm going to talk like without my computer for a second, and then I'm going to get back onto it. But it's really important to kind of like acknowledge the funding landscape of Los Angeles. It's abysmal. There's this survey that goes out to all of the nonprofits. Like if you get federal money, you have to put all of your info into it to figure out like where the most vibrant arts communities are in like every single city. There's 947 cities surveyed in the United States with this this survey. We, in Los Angeles, have the #1 amount of independent artists per capita, according to the survey. We are 947 out of 947 in state arts funding. We are 130-something out of 947 in federal arts funding. Woohoo! It's bad. It's like really bad here. It's very competitive because there's a lot of artists here. There's this huge industry of the arts here. But a lot of it is privately funded, and we recognize that that's not really accessible to everybody. So we're going to try and give you as many steps as we can to make this acceptable. We're trying to get more funding. We love it. We've just increased our funds. We were able to raise 24 artist fund stipends, woo! Which was amazing for us. But I know it's not enough. We also just like kind of want to recognize that even with these little blips, they're not enough. So I want to like acknowledge that that is the level that we're all playing at, and we're going to talk about grant writing. We're going to talk about alternative ways of fundraising, and we're going to talk about crowdfunding, as well as like what it looks like to budget fully. And I also kind of want to just say that we're going to talk a little bit loosely about things, because some things are going to be applicable to you in this room, and some are going to be more applicable to somebody else. Like somebody in here might be more of a crowdfunder, and somebody else in here might be like, I actually have communities that I know I can get to do other things, you know? Okay, so boom. Let's talk budgeting first. Budgeting is really confusing because you have to remember that a budget is not it's not set in stone, right? So like you have to budget many times. And actually, like when I budget for Hollywood Fringe, we budget like 6 or 7 different realities. And then that way when things come up, we're like, cool, this is the reality we're living in now. So I think it's really, really important that you use your budgets in that flexible way, and you start to think about things. And I'm going to kind of point it out to you. We're going to go to, can everybody take out their smartphones if you have a smartphone with you? And if not, I have these lovely iPads that you can borrow. So if you want to raise your hand, I can bring it to you if you do not have a smartphone with you. Great. So you're going to go to hollywoodfringe.org/budget if you want to follow along with some of the things I'm about to talk about, because it's easier when you're following along. Does somebody need an iPad if they don't have a phone with them? If you want to raise your hand if you don't have a phone. Cool. So once you get there, we're going to look at some sample budgets. So these budgets are from different types of shows, and they've done different types of things. And then inside there, we also have a template for you to create your own budget. And I kind of want to go through these kind of different realities of these different people. Some of these shows were like, I'm a super budgeter. Like, I'm making this super intense. And some of these shows were like, here are my 5 things that I care about in a spreadsheet. And I think that that's really valid, both sides of these, because really your budget has to work for you. It's the same way in living. Not every person has a budget that works for them at their house. It's going to be the same thing for your show. So the first one is, this budget was super comprehensive. This like 2019 musical, it was a 7-show musical run with paid actors and paid musicians, and there was a large cast and crew. They had to pay for rehearsal space for 50 hours. And this is a dream budget that like came from many years of this person producing, not only at Hollywood Fringe, but they're like a bigger producer. And so I want to like name within that, this doesn't have to be your budget, but that can be like a goals budget for somebody who's doing something a little bit bigger. Then you have your ensemble show with 9 cast members. That's like a more realistic budget for new producers with like a 5-performance run. This was a ensemble show with like, it was a pretty large cast, and they rehearsed in free space, I think living rooms, for April and May, and then they like put in some like realistic money for a couple of hours in a rehearsal space to do blocking. And that's going to be more typical for people. And then like this solo show perspective budget, that was for a solo show that was like, I'm going to Edinburgh Fringe. I am going to be bringing my show on the road, and I need Hollywood to be the place where I get all of the things to make that possible. So that last solo show budget is like, again, that kind of dreamer budget. That's like more extreme than most people would go. But those are just like some to like kind of noodle on. If you go up to the top, it says, please follow this link to our full budgeting Google folder. I'm going to click in there, and I'm going to talk about our prospective show budget, which is like our recommendation. It's a budget that I made, to be clear. It's this is how my brain works, and so I just wanted to talk it through with y'all. I put it in as PDFs as well as the Google Sheet. The Google Sheet is like a view only, which means that you just have to go into it and say, make a copy, and then you can make your own, and then you can make 10 different budgets. But you can kind of break it down into like your budget income, which is going to come from your ticket sales, your crowdfunding, grants, single donations, and maybe something like ad sales. And we're going to talk about all of those more in depth in a second. And then on the bottom part, you're going to have your budget expenses, which are going to be your like more fixed costs, like your venue costs, your base rental of your venue. Is there venue personnel that you need to pay for, like tech or a box office? Were there other venue costs that you talked and you had in your upfront thing? Oh, thank you so much, Haverty. Then you're going to have like insurance is a really common thing that you're going to need to pay for. Your rehearsal space, if you want to do that like blocking that we talked about. And guess what? There's pages of discounts on rehearsal space in the participant packet. So if you're like, what are the rates that I should look at? HollywoodFringe.org/participants. Then you're going to talk about like sets, costumes, and props. Let me just be honest. Nobody's spending money on that here at Fringe. Do not spend money on that. If you're like, I'm worried about money, that's something you can cut. You can go and Goodwill your costumes. You can do it out of your closets. There's been such creative things, like people have made things out of bed sheets that were like old bed sheets, and they've created into these beautiful set pieces. Reduce, reuse, recycle things from past productions, share with each other. It is really not gonna make or break your Fringe experience. People are not expecting this. This is not Fringe. This is Then you have like your personnel. Personnel is often a way where people will do more of like they'll do more of a community. Come on in. Oh, hi, Riley. They'll do more of like a share where it's like all proceeds. They'll decide, okay, great, we're going to split our proceeds all between these 4 people who are co-producing or something like that. So it's very common that somebody might be like, I'm not paying people to be on my production team. That being said, if you don't have relationships with people already to be on that production team, money's then where you might want to think. Does that make sense? So it's either like you came in with this production team already and you guys were already working together, or you're like, I'm going to need to hire someone. Sound good? All right, and then the next little section you're going to look at, you're like your marketing, your publicity. That's going to be like your social media. Are you going to buy a Fringe guide ad? That's the only way that you get a picture inside of the guide. Otherwise, it's just your listing. Your Fringe online ads, are you going to do that? Postcard printing, program printing, office hours dollars, because you're going to want to buy a couple of drinks or thank people to come out with you to this office hours. You might want to put some beer money in there. Somebody literally labeled it as beer money, and I laughed. And then documentation. Documentation. As a grant writer, I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to document your show. That is what you're going to be able to sell your show with. So if you do this whole run and you never got any photos, you never got any video, you never got anything, it's not great. Does that have to be professional? It depends on what your goals are. For a lot of grants, I've used cell phone photos, and they've been just fine. But it just means that it's something you need to take account of, and you need to know what your goals are after Fringe. So really what this panel is about is setting your expectations for what is this run, and then the bunch of runs that you're going to hopefully do after this. Or if you're like, I'm not doing anything after this, Ellen, then that's fine. Then it's going to be a little bit different for you. And that's what's so great, is that everybody's going to have a different budget, they're going to have different goals, and they're going to have different things within this budget to reflect that. So they might want to have this giant set piece, and they might want to spend all their money there because this is the only time they're going to do the show, and they just want to do it full out, you know? Okay, so the next PDF that I want to go to, which is actually just another tab. So the way that I get all these numbers when I'm budgeting, I'm like, okay, I have all these things, is that I always have these little other tabs where I'm like creating the budgets for everything else. So the next budget, like the little tab on the sheet, is other fundraising, where I start to think about like, how am I going to make money? And I start to write in every little category, who's going to give me money from those categories. So when I go for like if like you're like, I'm in a crowd fund, in your budgeting process, you're going to write down how many people you can expect to give you different dollar amounts at different things. So like at Fringe, we've literally sat and we've been like, we know that this person could give us this much. And we know that this person can give us this much. And then we start to kind of like literally analyze our lives. We go through all of our email lists that we've ever gone to, and we start to think about who are we going to reach out to? How many times are we going to reach out to? And it starts with the budget. Like you should start to kind of put it in that way, and that way you can properly budget. Because if you are going to budget that you're going to do $2,500 in crowdfunding, how? Who? Start to make those goals based on who you know and what you know you can actually do, because then you can always increase the goal if it's like golden. But if you plan on making $2,500, you need to plan on how to make $2,500. Donations income. You might want to figure out how you're going to have donations. People are going to buy your tickets, and they're totally awesome people. People are buying $10 tickets at a Fringe show. People are going to 10 different Fringe shows, might not do this, but people who are like one-offers, if you have like a little donation at the end and you're like, please help us with our next thing that we're doing, you can say that at the end, and people do that. There's different ways that you can get donations, and they don't all have to come before your production happens. They can also come during June. Program ad sales. This is like a really smart thing you can do. And I'm actually taking this from a 2018 participant who during the like workshops was like, you know how I got everything? She like divided out her program, and she had these little different like ad spaces, and she sold those ads to local restaurants because her piece was about food. And she was like, my piece is about food. I want people to come eat your food after my show. So I'm going to sell each of these for $100, which is like so nominal to a restaurant, right? They're like, great, like $100, and I'm supporting the arts. It's tax deductible, all those things. You have to look up your tax things. I'm not a tax representative, so please don't. But like make it tax deductible. Make it so that is legal. I don't know. So like these are like really smart ways. So like you can sell like $50 ads in your little program to like, you know, maybe there's somebody that you know that like has a business that they would want to promote to the theater community. These are like really good ways for you to be able to like add things in without having like with a more non-traditional. People have done parties. People have been like, I'm going to throw a big party, and I'm going to get all of my friends to donate $25, and I'm going to give free booze at this party. It's going to be my party to fundraise for Fringe. I've never been able to throw a party like that, but people can. There's some people that can. Grants income. Grants are so hard. They are so hard, guys. So let's talk about them really in depth really quick. Actually, I'm going to talk about them more in depth in a second. If you want to get grant income, you should already be writing grants. And you should already have pictures. You should already have proof of concepts. And if it's not for this show, it should be for other shows that you've done in the past, and then you give your pitch. So if this is your first time doing something like this, I would say that this is where you build all of that so that you write that really great grant for the next thing. That being said, there are tons of like one-off, easy, cheap, like small donation things that you can search for. So you're gonna like, I'll go into this in a second, but there's like other ways that are like not like the National Endowment for the Arts, you know, like that's a stretch. But there's these other smaller things that are gonna be easier. Okay, the last little tab on that sheet is gonna be like where I project ticket sales. And I also have it as a PDF. It's last, it looks like this. And I really wanna talk about how you should budget your ticket sales. You should budget your ticket sales as if you're going to have a 40 to 60% sell-through rate. So your sell-through rate is like how many people actually end up showing up, right? So like in here, it'd be crazy if I had budgeted a 60% sell-through rate and this is my audience. You know, that would have not been good. But we didn't because we don't budget for this. But the truth is like you should really start to think like the average house last year at Hollywood Fringe. This is like in our annual report. You can look it up, hollywoodfringe.org/annual report. You should start by doing your research in places like that, where you can kind of see these standard facts. But last year the average sell-through rate was 30 seats. But that is in a house this size, and that's in a house 20 seats. So like it just depends on your production. It depends on your sort of like individual circumstances. And if you're like, I want individualized advice on that, great. Come to office hours, come talk to us, and we'll totally like give you some like pointers of things to say. Or like the number one tip. I said tip and trick at the same time. The number one tip that I would say is to find the show that won an award in like the last 3 years that it like most matches you. Like, who was that? Like, what show is like the most similar thing to you? And figure out what they did. So like, if you're like, I want to be like Bugs, I want to win Best Comedy, and I want to have like this big like sketch show, then like you go and you look up them and you figure out like what did they do, and you like start to learn things around that, right? You see like what kind of space did they sell out in? What kind of like space was comfortable to them? These are like really good ways. And then I would find 4 to 5 different shows that look like you, so that you can like kind of be like, okay, that one, they did this way, this way, this is the one that feels better to me. But literally use other people's experience. That's all of that data lives on our website, and it's like such a great way for you to be able to do things. Okay, I have 15 minutes. I'm gonna go on to the next thing, which is not on there, but it is a blog post. So if you go to our blog, hollywoodfringe.org/news, so hollywoodfringe.org/news. This, what I'm about to go over is like all there, like written out like very plainly, but I'm gonna go over it like more broadly, and it's talking about funding. So we're gonna talk about funding. So individual artist grants. In addition to like, so we have the scholarship program, we have the artist fund. Those are like the fringe opportunities. But there's so many other opportunities out there, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to little Google, you're gonna be like, individual artist grant, Los Angeles. Fundraising, Los Angeles. Fringe grants, fringe fund, fringe money, theater. Like you're gonna just like type in all these keywords until you find every exhaustive source that is out there. And then also in this blog, we have like 2 lists of grants that you can start as like a jumping off point. So that's on our blog. Grant writing tips. Okay, you found the grant. Things to think about. We're gonna go over some definitions really quick. Like your documentation. Your documentation does not have to be a beautifully like packaged, like here's 30 minutes of my show. It doesn't even have to be like here's 3 minutes of my show. Sometimes it's like here's some rough footage from rehearsal that we have cut together, like our best moments from. Like, and it can be that. Sometimes documentation in a grant proposal is also very specific. Sometimes they want like a letter from somebody on the production, or sometimes they might want like photos specifically. So it's like hard to say, but when people say documentation, they literally mean like, ooh, like what it means. But when I was writing grants for the first time, I was like, what the fuck does that mean? An abstract is gonna be like your like abstracted thoughts. So like your abstract is going to be like, here's everything that I'm trying to say abstracted into a really short, concise way for you to be able to get it. Your statement of need is like, I need this and this is why. And it sounds so whiny to be like, I need this. But like you literally have to tell the funder why you need it. That is you selling your story. And your story doesn't have to be like, isn't that tragic? Because it's already tragic here in Los Angeles. Like it's horrible. Like the funding is so bad and they know that. So like you can like name that without having to feel like I'm going to take it away from someone else. Like everybody is talking about their statement of need, and some people's might be like more robust than others. And also consider that, like, is this grant and what they're saying they need to fund me? Because I think it's always the grossest when I've I've always opted out of applying for grants that were not for me too. So like you also have to like be like, in my statement of need, where's my hierarchy in this? Cost sharing or matching funds. So matching funds, often grants will be like, I need you to find a match. And you usually have to find that in advance. But your match usually doesn't have to be confirmed. For us, we've been like, our match is ticket sales. And that's okay too. So some people will get really hung up, like if there's a grant with the match, they'll be like, oh, no, I'm gonna find that match. And I'm like, see what their allowable costs are, because sometimes it can be as simple as ticket sales or like other donations. And your earned income is going to be like what you've sold and earned. So that's going to be like, I've sold tickets, I've done merch sales, I've done workshop fees, that kind of stuff. Whereas your contributed income is going to usually be any donation where that donor doesn't like get a like direct benefit from it. So your contributed income is usually going to be them contributing to your success without them getting anything. And where it gets tricky is if you're like offering donors things, but that only happens when you're a nonprofit. And I really highly doubt that any of you guys are going to become nonprofits. Actually, to be clear, it is really hard. And there's this thing called fiscal sponsorship. Have you guys heard of fiscal sponsors? Okay, so a fiscal sponsor, if you get to the point where you're like, I need to apply for this grant and I need nonprofit status in order to do that, look into fiscal sponsorship and see, does this maybe fit it more? Fiscal sponsorship is when an organization will let you operate under their nonprofit status to apply for grants, and they usually take a fee of your grants. So there's like other ways as you're kind of going down this path where you're like, I don't want to run a nonprofit. Great, most theater companies don't. You know, most theater companies will go more down this kind of route nowadays. Tips and tricks. Do your research. Don't apply for a grant just because it's available. That's a waste of your time. You have to make sure that you match that program's goals and that this will be like a symbiotic relationship, because your goal is to have a good relationship with that funder so that hopefully you can open doors for other people, right? And open doors for your future work. Know your project in and out before applying for funding. If you're still thinking about your project right now, you can still do Hollywood Fringe, but grant funding is not going to be the way for you to fund it. That's like, you really need to know your project in and out. When you do apply for a grant, don't write the grant in the grant portal. Don't. It's so confusing. Make a separate document where you put all the questions and you get people to proofread it there, and like you really feel strongly that you've answered everything, and then you input it into the portal and you submit it. And get feedback. And you want to get feedback from at least 3 people who have read it in various stages, and also from people who are not familiar with your project, because you need to make sure that what you're selling is like really clear. And so if they've never heard of your project before, they're going to be the best person to look at your work, because they're going to be like, oh, that didn't read to me here. When they give you feedback. And there's like there's tons of guides on grant writing that we have in that little blog, so please go through. Crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is where more people end up going. And that's a great option for people who already have like a built-in audience. And it's really good for people who are good at marketing. You really have to market yourself to crowdfund. So compared to applying for grants, though, it's like a lot easier because it's less intimidating, more straightforward, and you more often than not don't have to have like a ton of like reporting or other things on the back end of it, unless you make a lot of work for yourself. So let's think about the kind of pitfalls that I've seen people go in with crowdfunding. They've offered tickets as their main like level of like, they're like, if you give me $25, I'll give you a ticket. That's cutting into your ticket sales. Think about that. Also, maybe plan about that. Maybe you're like, I want to offer tickets as my like crowdfunding thing. Great, plan for it. Make sure that you like have that in your breakdown when you're doing your budgeting. Another like pitfall I've seen people do is that they like post it, and then they just like keep posting the video over and over, or they keep like messaging people over and over, but there's never been like a, hey, like this is like, there's like no personal stake in it. Like it's often easier when you're like, this is what I'm already doing. I'm already doing Fringe. I'm already putting up this amount of money, and I need you to get me that last $500. Like sell it to someone. Don't just like post it being like, I'm doing Fringe, give me money, please. Make your story your narrative. It's like you're selling yourself. Like you really have got to have a narrative of like, what is this money going towards? What is it specifically going towards? Transparency is so much easier, or like so much, like so helpful in this regard. And people are always like, what platform do I use? 100%. It's on you. I don't know. It depends on what you like. There's like a million blogs that'll tell you a million different things about what's the best thing to use. But remember, those are usually blogs that are written by people who are selling crowdfunding. So like, you have to kind of just like look through the fees, see which fees end up like breaking even for you, and then go with which one like has the best marketing for your type of crowd. Like if you're like a film person who's coming into theater, like Seed and Spark might work for you, even though most theater people don't use it. You know, like there's certain things. Yes, we'll talk more about that with our panel. Another thing that people never realize is when you set your fundraising goal, like you have got to figure out how you're going to make it. So for instance, like you set a $500 fundraising goal, that's 10 people at $10 each is just $100. So that's convincing 10 people to give you $10 is only going to give you $100. 10 people at 25 would be $250, and 3 people at 50 would be $150. So that'd be like 23 people could get you to $500, right? So you have to think like, how many people in my life will give me $10? Write down all their names. How many people in my life would give you $25? Write down all their names. How many people would give me 50? Write down all their names. And then after you said all of that, you divide it by like 3 or like more than 3. And you think like, because most people will ignore you. Like, you know what I mean? Like think about how many people have messaged you and you're like, I wish I had given to them and I just never did, you know? I will also remind you, this is like a really nice thing before I bring our panel up, but one of my favorite quotes that I ever heard was, and if you feel like you're annoying somebody while crowdfunding, it's because it's annoying. It's annoying to crowdfund. And they're already going to be annoyed by you if they're annoyed by you for crowdfunding. You know what I mean? Like, they're already going to find you annoying. Like, that's already somebody who already in their mind has been like, you're annoying. So, like, I've never had anybody message me about their crowdfund and me be like, I don't want to be their friend anymore. So you have to, like, take that out of your mind. Like, it is going to feel annoying. You're going to feel awful doing it. It is not fun. Fundraising sucks. But to be good at it, you kind of have to just be like, well, I need to do it anyway. Do you guys want to come up now to our panel? Yeah, come. In a bit, yeah. Yeah, we can move the chairs closer together.
I feel like I'm on Jimmy Fallon.
I'm not wiring you. Hello.
Hi.
I'm Kelly. Hi.
This is our amazing panel. Can you all tell me your name, your pronouns, and do a visual description? For me, my visual description was that I was a white woman. I'm wearing a acid trip of a jacket, and I have brown hair with bangs, and then I've already done the description in the back.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kelly Lynn D'Angelo. I she, they for my pronouns. I am a 5'2.5" maybe taller if I work on my stretching, little native girl. I am wearing a long, billowy sweater dress that I've gotten many compliments on. It is great. Thank you.
I love it.
I am wearing fun little glasses, and I have a lot of jewelry on.
Wonderful dress. My name's Riley Smith. I'm he, him. And I have brown curly hair. I am pale, white-skinned. I have gray pants on and a bug shirt and a black fleece.
Can y'all give me a description of the shows you've done at Fringe? I know you've done a ton, yeah, and I know that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I did the 2015 Hollywood Fringe back in the day. That's actually where I met Ellen all those years ago, so that's amazing. That was a very ambitious project. It was a cast of 16, and it was a full hour and a half long musical, original musical called The Count of Monte Cristo. It was a version of that book, classic book. Another thing, I have produced a couple other shows and helped people get their feet with Fringe in the past. A lot of things with Robot Teammate and other things like that, who are good friends. But more recently, last year in 2023, I brought a project, a satire called Les Millenniables, a musical parody, to Hollywood Fringe here. We had a great run. We also sold out that run. And then I brought it to Edinburgh Fringe, where we had a run, and we also sold out that run. So it was a really exciting year last year, especially with fringing. I also brought a concert series to Edinburgh Fringe in 2019 with the Free Fringe there. So I even got a little Free Fringe experience over there. So yeah, I have produced a lot of theater, both in Fringe and outside of Fringe. I've written a lot of it, so that's a little bit about my background.
Wow. Very impressive. Last year was my first Fringe. I was a comedian in Los Angeles, been working a while, and I self-produced last year 2 shows in the Fringe. I did a sketch show on this stage here called Bugs with a cast of 7 or 8. One of those numbers. It was a large cast. And then I also did a one-man show in the little black box over there, which was called Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Extended Edition, Part 1.
I love it. And like I said, so that's the variance of award-winning shows at Fringe. Like, people who are like, I've never done this before, or people like who have done it a lot of times. And I think that's what's really beautiful about Fringe is like everybody's gonna have a different journey and everybody's gonna decide like different things. Some people go to Hollywood Fringe and they're like, I'm never doing it again. Valid. And some people really like find a community here and a place to produce. And so I think yeah, I want to like ask, because I feel like you guys do this really differently, and that's why we asked both of you, because we think that it's very different. And I want to know, how did you budget for the festival? Let's talk specifically about 2023. did most of the money come out of your pocket? Did you fundraise at all? Or like, was it, and if you did fundraise, where?
So yeah, specifically for last year, there was a dual strategy. I mean, Edinburgh Fringe is its own beast, so I'm going to stay focused on Hollywood Fringe. And if you guys have questions about that one or transitioning from Hollywood to Edinburgh, of course, I'll be here to answer that after. But we were lucky in that I had already produced in Hollywood Fringe before. So I had gone through crowdfunding. I had tried other versions of fundraising, but I found it to be most effective to produce theater at an incredibly bootstrapped level of fund. Like, essentially, I asked maybe one or two people in my life, like, you want to give me $100, and then the rest will be my own savings. I find ways to do things on literally no budget, and it's something that I love. I think that the lack of budget is one of the biggest challenges and also most creative inspirations to the Fringe experience, and that's what I love about it. So last year, because my co-writer and I, we are both women of color, we were lucky enough to be a part of the diversity program in Hollywood Fringe. So just having that space alone opened up our budget a little bit more for things outside of it. We were going to do the show either way, but just having the support and having the physical space really helped. It allowed us essentially to get more rehearsal time, which is never a problem when you're doing a musical. And so with that, I put aside about $2,000, maybe $2,200, and I put on a whole show with that amount of money. You can do that. You can put aside a couple grand, like one month of rent, you guys, and actually put on a whole successful show and make your money back, if not more, which is great. And I'm lucky that that's always been my case. So,
actually, kind of similar. We did do a Kickstarter, but I think we only raised about $600 on it. We had done, we are all working artists, so we had all expended all of our crowdfunding. So we didn't make that much that way, but we had a couple angel donors, we call them, basically, who donated $1,000. If you can get someone to donate $1,000, that's way more helpful. Then finding 100 people to donate $10 is hard. Finding one person to donate $1,000, especially if you say I'll pay you back, is not as difficult. So, I borrowed money. I think we had about a $3,000 budget for our show, and at the end of it, I only lost $200, which I was very proud of. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you. But I think that's the reality of LA theater outside of Hollywood Fringe, honestly. Like, it is very realistic to have this be an out-of-pocket expense, and it sucks. Like, I am also naming that's fucked up. Like, that should not be the case for this ecosystem, but as it is right now, it kind of is. And I think I'd like to talk about, like, financially planning for that. Like, how did you financially plan, like, I'm going to spend money at Fringe? Like, did you like think about it a year in advance? Was it something that you just like kind of skip some things? I don't know.
Yeah, for me, putting on musicals is a whole other thing. Our cast was a cast of 8 this previous Fringe, and that original one was 16, and I still did that show with less than $3,000 or $4,000, if memory serves me correctly, which is wild. That I was able to put, again, rate of inflation is a little different back in 2015, but for me, when I start to think about putting on a show, I think in terms of what's the most important thing and what is my mission? What do I want at the end of this show? Is it to become closer to the Hollywood Fringe community? Sometimes it is, right? Is it I want a platform to workshop something that I've been trying to get on its feet, and I just really need an audience to sit in front of my show and respond to it in some way? Is it to get an agent or a manager if you're an actor? Like, knowing or having a little bit of intent when you first go into a project is really going to help you figure out where you put your budget, because that's like what it's all about, right? And from there, you can sort of divide and start to plan out where your money needs to go. What's most important? Of course, your space is the key in any Fringe production space, the space you're in physically. Knowing and understanding the best environment and space for your specific show, it will make or break your show. It will make it a good experience for you as producers, as performers, or it will make it a good experience for your audience. If you know, like this space, this beautiful space might have been good for my first show, but for my second show, we did end up doing 2 shows in this theater, but we did extend it. But I actually felt like our show was better in the round, which is why we experimented so much, and we were so excited when we were able to see the space and exercise the show in the round, and it did do really well in the round. And so thinking about being inventive, being experimental, this is Hollywood Fringe. Get weird with your audience, get intimate with them. It's like such a beautiful space for it. And the reason I say all of that is because that will dictate your ticket sales, that will dictate your cost of the space that you get, the dates and the times that you might have a run. If there's different, I don't know, the pricing could be different per venue. And also think of the support that comes along with that venue space. That's very important because certain venues will offer more support, like front of house or food and beverage sales if you want, or if you want to sell your own merch. These things can all be extra assets that help you finance your show. So again, think about your show and think about the space. That's the number one thing. From there, I started to think about what's the next most important thing. Is it costumes? If it's not, put $25 aside, you guys, and then go to a thrift shop. Like, I kid you not. The super thrift in the Valley or any of those ones, if you need costumes, just go up there and do it. Think of your crafty friends. This is when you call in favors. This is when you say, hey, Susan, I know you got that garage that you're not using. Can I go in and rehearse in your garage? Can I tape it? Can I tape down on the floor? So you get inventive with thinking of how to save money in different spots. Same with props. What's really essential here. The more you can reduce all of those fronts there and make it really just about the show and the product and the story that you're putting forward, the more you're going to save money. And that's why you can do this on a next to nothing budget. I will also say flyers. Put money aside for flyers. Flyers in space.
Well, I'm sorry, I forgot what was it?
No, that's perfect. How did you financially plan for Fringe? Like, what was your process for that?
Okay, so yeah, we definitely built a budget. I came to all of these meetings last year, and we were probably rehearsing as of January, so we would have been in the rehearsal process. But basically, I wrote it like a year beforehand, and then just started getting the cast in a room rehearsing, and said, if I get the cast in the room rehearsing, then I have to figure everything else out, because these guys are depending on me now.
I said, very different processes.
And boy, does that light a fire under your took us. Yeah, that'll get you going. So we realized it was going to be about $2,000 for the space, and we set aside our show was very costume heavy, but we did it all homemade. So my mother was the costume designer, and I basically had a little sweatshop built in my parents' apartment, and we had a 5-foot-tall dung ball, which was basically just like a yoga ball, those like yoga balls. And then we wrapped it in a bunch of blankets, and then wrapped the whole thing in a brown sheet, and that made a dung ball for our dung beetle. So the more creative and cheap you can be with your costume pieces, these things don't have to be real; they just have to be,
It's almost better when they're not. Like, I feel like if you're gonna go low budget, go low budget. You know what I mean? Like, don't try and make it not what it is. Like, it's so fun when you're in this environment. We're all in this environment. Every person in LA theater is making these cuts, And so when they see something that's inventive and smart and they know it doesn't cost anything, it is bewildering. People are like, "Wow, that was crazy," because it's really incredible to see people's minds come up with these little things. Anyways, let's talk about audience sizes and how did you budget for ticket sales and defining your audience sizes and deciding how many seats you were going to book for your venue.
Okay. Sure.
That's what they do on talk shows.
They take turns. We use this space, and we wanted to do a big sketch show. We didn't really know how big of an audience is. I was thinking we were going to get 40 to 60 because that's what Ellen had said in this talk. So I was like 40 to 60. That is golden. And the truth of the matter is that's probably around what we got. I think we were probably getting about 60% of this house. We had a couple smaller shows, but on a good night, about 60% of the house, which was great. How much of those were sold tickets, I do not know. I went to all of the meeting things. I talked to as many different people putting different shows on, and I was a big, I'll give you a free ticket if you give me a free ticket person. So I ended up seeing way too many shows. But I met a lot of people. I became a part of the community, and a lot of people came and saw my show out of obligation.
Did you do your solo show in a smaller house?
Yeah, I did my solo show in a much smaller house right over there. That was only a 40-seat house. So that on a good night, I would have 25. But I did a show, I think my smallest audience was 6, which was so much fun. If you ever get a chance to do a show for 6 people, it's really intimate. It's really intimate. But that was, that show, my budget was just the space and my costume. And I didn't even have to pay for rehearsals or whatever.
Mine was a little different because I think so much about the space that I'm in and how I want the environment to feel for the audience that I'm I would rather rather have people upset that they can't get a ticket to my show. So how do I create the scarcity mentality? That did happen. We had literally people at our show here at Hollywood Fringe lie about their name and say they knew us to get tickets. What? Who are you people? And that was awesome. Being able to drum up that sense of excitement for your show. So the reason that I was so excited about the space that we had was because it was a strapped, it was raked seating just like this. But then we found out with fire code we could do a thrust wrap. And so I'm so we can add more seats and make it feel really intimate and have 75 people times this amount because we'll sell out, so we can make the tickets a little bit more expensive. It's musical, so $15 or whatever, and then go from there. It was very analytical. I literally crunch from sellouts to 80% house full to 50% house full, and I analyze all of those amounts, and I try to keep myself open-minded to whatever could happen and how I can build up momentum depending on ticket sales and audience response. One thing that really worked effectively for our crew was we said at the end of our show, hey guys, we're going to Edinburgh Fringe. If you enjoyed this and you feel like the show is worth more, please donate on your way out. Use this QR code and give us a little bit extra money. And that's literally how we raised 1,000 or 2,000 more to get to Edinburgh. So again, think outside the box about how you can talk to your audience and respond to them. So hope that helps.
Yeah. How much did you all charge? Or what is a typical for a musical or a solo show? What would you say as an average ticket price that you see commonly? And what did you charge? Yeah.
So for this musical project, we did, I believe it was $18 or $15 for Les Miserables, which is, again, if you know Les Miserables, it's exactly what you think. And I felt because it was a smaller, more intimate show, there weren't tons of seats. That was a reasonable ask. You have 8 people singing well and dancing in front of you, and it's a good time, a solid hour of fun. For the other show that I did at Hollywood Fringe, that was a 16-person cast and a full 90-minute show. I was 23 and full of energy, you guys. Yeah. And so at that point, my tickets had to be a lot more expensive. My tickets were I think they were $30 to come. Yeah. And that still sold out, but I did do a lot of different sort of like, 2-for-1s, or, here a BOGO or something like that to drum up and, get as many people in those seats as possible to fill it. So you get inventive with your ticket sales, and again, the space compared to the amount of seats there are.
I think it's really important to know who your audience is. So I did a sketch show, and then I did a one-person show, and we did $15 for the sketch show, and we did $10 for the one-person show. But most of the people I'm going for are from the comedy side. I didn't know as many theater people to try to get to come in, and those comedy people are cheap. If you're putting on like an actual play, people are often willing to spend a little more money. Yeah. And the truth of the matter is, sometimes even like to. So just know, are the people coming to this people who are gonna spend $20 for a ticket and it's no problem? Hey, charge them $20. They'll like it. Are they a bunch of poor people who won't spend more than $10? Then you gotta only charge $10. Them's the rules.
Did y'all? Them's the rules. Did y'all budget for like comps and discounted tickets as well, or was that just something that ended up coming later as a surprise?
I did not. I did so many things so badly.
Yeah, to a literal T, to a point that I'm like, if we have one extra seat, how are you going to handle this? Oh, we can't give too many comps. We have to do exactly 4 a night. And then if something opens up, this is how it extends the budget. Really thought about every single one. We had to be very careful with comps too, because we were lucky that the show was sort of had a catchy name, and so that already was drumming up response. So we had to be very careful about that.
How did you determine who those comps were, since you were so careful?
Well, we wanted to always have a little bit of side, obviously, for Hollywood staff. That was the most important thing. So we always had 2, and then we always had 2 extra. We literally were 4 per show. Yeah. That's what we're going to do. And thankfully, because we could tell sometimes people that there was likely going to be no shows, or people who would show up late, we could then tell folks to show up at the door. Yeah. And I don't think we actually had to turn away anybody except for the first night. We only had to turn away 3 people. And then they came up later and they were able to see later shows. So that was nice.
Were they industry comps or press comps, everything?
Yeah, industry. If cast members had agents or somebody really important, that was one way, because anyone doing a Fringe show knows they ain't making money on it, unless you're very lucky and you have great people who have a lot of money. It's a group effort. This is not something that you do on your own. This is something that you do with a unit. It's so community based. It's so driven by community, which I just love. I love so much. And so for us, that's the one thing you can do for the people that you're working with. Put some dang seats aside for them to have a door open for them if they need it. Yeah, so that was a really important part of our comp situation.
Yeah. Same, different?
Well, no. Yeah, we would have 30 comps some nights.
Oh, we missed it.
30 comps.
Yeah.
All right. How did you factor marketing into your budget? Was it a big part of your budget, a small part of your budget? Was it more on social media? Was it more on buying ads? What was that?
Let me. I can start this one, if that's okay with you. Okay. I made a lot of mistakes on this front. I spent probably $1,200 on advertising. And some of it was in the most stupid, asinine ways possible. I was buying ads in the Toluca Lake Press website and things like that. Listen, people are. I've never been to the Toluca Lake Press
bugs?
website before.
For bugs?
Yeah. So don't buy ads. If they're not going to be seen. I think that the magazine is a good idea. The Fringe Guide, and I think the website ad is a good idea, and I think maybe boosting your Instagram is a good idea. Other than that, the best advertising you can do is going to the office hours things and talking to a bunch of people, and just telling everybody about your show, and being nice.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely how we got our first show off the ground in 2015. It was like, go to every single mixer, go to everything, have as many of the flyers in your hand as you can. People, like, it's exciting. People want to hear about your show because they usually have a show too, and you can talk about your life journeys, and you make like really great friendships and relationships. And so it's a very beautiful experience. Also, have them on you when you go out. When you are at a restaurant, or you're at a coffee house, sometimes you can put them down at coffee houses. Like, you can ask, and they have little spaces for you to flyer. Always have a little bit there, and don't hesitate to strike up a conversation with your server, with your Uber driver. These are actually the people who might come see your show. I literally kid you not. Always have a flyer on you, and don't be afraid to talk about the thing that you're doing. If someone's asking what you're up to, get excited. Tell them about this awesome thing that you're doing that not a lot of people, like many people, dream of doing that you're doing. Yeah.
Oh my God, you just literally made me like light up, because I think that's so true. It's like, who are your audiences? Like, let's talk about that for a second. Like, where's the majority of people coming in? Were they fellow artists? Were they people that you had met on the street? And how do you find people that aren't within the Fringe community? Like, how did you outreach outside of Fringe?
I do feel lucky that I've spent I've been in the city. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Making noise in Hollywood, you guys. Our art. So yeah, I've been in the city for a little over a decade, and I have always been very active in not just the Hollywood Fringe community, but in the theater community at large. I'm a terrible person. I work in Hollywood, and I would rather go see a theater show than go see a movie. Like, I love theater. It is my lifeblood. I shoot it in my veins. And so I am familiar with people from Pasadena Playhouse and from like little tiny black boxes in North Hollywood. I go and support other people's shows that are not during the Fringe time, because it's just like, I like shows. I like this community. And so a lot of the time I get this great mix. I get this great intersection of folks who like come from the more like uppity, prestigious theater world, and then you get like the vagabond like artists on the ground, and you also get to rope in other people who are sort of intersectional in that, right? Like, depending on your show's audience, you really have to think. Like, I knew that the show that I had this last year is going to get a lot of people who like musicals. Yeah. Like, if you like Les Mis, come see our show. Or if you're poor and under 40, come see our show. like we had some people over the age of 50 come and they're like, it sounded great, but I don't understand a thing that was said. And I'm like, yeah, because we knew who our audience was. Right. Like, we would tell people that. Yeah. And I think sometimes, like, I think of the show I had in 2015, that was a regal show. I wanted to get the more old school audience in. And because some of the cast members at the time, because of how equity was at the time, I was able to work with some equity actors because of the size of the theater. And these were people who came from like the theater scene in LA. And they brought along all of their regal, prestigious friends. And so it was really lovely. And I got to almost like combine that crowd with like the sort of on the ground artists of Hollywood Fringe in 2015. And it was a really, really special year. So, yeah.
Wait, what was the question again?
No, the question was about, like, where did you get your audiences from? How much of it was from the Fringe? How much of it was outside? And
I would say 90% of it was from the Fringe. Now, maybe less, 80. A lot of people, cast members bringing their friends and stuff. And then also, similarly, you meet so many people. The more you work here, this is the first show I produced, but I've lived here for a long time too, so you just end up meeting more people, and those are the people that come.
How did y'all convince your cast to like help you market? Like, how did you incentivize that like on the ground?
My cast didn't help me market. We had a good buddy of mine played Richard Attenborough in the show, and he helped me market.
Yeah.
Cole Cuomo helped me market, and Serena maybe came to a couple of things. No one else came to anything, and it was okay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't expect them to. In my pre-planning and budgeting, I knew I didn't audition for my show. Yeah. I took the funniest people I know in this town who are very good friends of mine, and that means that they're all a bit of divas, and I'm gonna have to, deal with whatever if they're gonna put up with very little. So that just meant that I had to pound the pavement double. If you are paying actors or if you are having auditions and getting a new group of people, hopefully your cast is more excited and they'll help you along the way. But if you are using your mine of friends, just be aware, it's always better to not work with friends if you can. Because
I got it, yeah.
Because you think I'm joking. Your friends are the most talented, but your friends are also the ones who are going to be like, I can't come on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
No, I know that sounds like a joke, but it's not unless you're like really like there's a real co-collaboration there. Like there is more laxness to it, and so you got to be you really have to think about that because it is important. In terms of like the professionalism of your show, is your show just like a kickback fun thing? Or are you really trying to like put on a show and see if it can go somewhere that's different, right? Like every show has its own value and purpose. And so I think for me, now I get to ask, what was the question?
It's about we can go back to it, but it was just more about like where you got your audience from, and I think you kind of answered it a little bit.
Oh, and we were talking about marketing too, and if your cast.
That's where we were.
We're
on the track again.
How do you get so I for in terms of marketing, and not just spreading the word, but I was very active on social media. That was one thing that I think I have a bit of a panache for, and so it was really nice to be able to know when to take video, to be sly about it, show people having fun, show little hints of your show. It was a huge help for our show getting the word out, putting little clips and reels together and having fun little tongue-in-cheek visuals. That got the cast like really excited to share. They were actually way more active on social media than I was ever expecting, and they kept coming up with better ideas than I ever could have. Yeah. Like we had I don't want to spoil it, but we had a moment where like an avocado came out and did a dance sequence, and so I like in a full avocado costume. And so they got so smart and they're like, we should just wear that everywhere. Like when we go to a mixer, just wear the avocado costume. Why not? Like when we're going out like to promote the show, wear an avocado costume. It worked so well. Yeah. And our cast was so down for it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that, standing out. How did you budget to make your show stand out? Or did it come from like these like kind of free things that you were thinking of? Yeah.
I bought I'm wearing a bug shirt now. I had a white one too, and I had white shorts, and I was walking around in my little bug outfit. So people would see the bug, and I had a bug hat.
The bug hat, yeah.
And then
I remember that.
So people would see me, and they would remember, oh, that's the bug guy. They're doing the bug show. So many people would just walk by and be like, bugs. And you go, yeah, that is what I'm doing. And I don't know if it got anyone to like me, but it did make people remember the name of my show.
I think it got people to like you. You won the best comedy. Yeah.
There you go. And on that, again, on the list of me not being organized or knowing how to do this, I didn't apply for any awards. I didn't do any of the campaigning. I found out afterwards I could have gotten money for an extended run. I could have tried to get another theater to perform in again. And I didn't do any of that. So maybe one of the biggest pieces of advice I have for people is in the awards section, it's not just like, oh, you got to win. It's not just like, oh, you got to win. It's 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 like, oh, laurels that you can put on the bottom of your thing. It can be actual money to do more shows. It can be a venue where you can do the show again more. So look into that. It's well worth it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of standing out, I'm just a firm believer in not being afraid, I guess. So yeah, that's why that avocado thing right away, I was like, yeah, I already have enough neurospiciness in my brain. I can just do this without thinking twice. And I think that really helped me, just like feeling this sort of like in theater, especially when you're trying to cut through the noise of and everybody, if everybody showed up and offered a full authentic version of themselves by presenting their show, they will stick in your brain. Like, rather it be wearing an avocado costume or having your 2-minute pitch down to a T about your show. That's so heartfelt and captivating that people have to come see your show. Yeah. Like, that's the hook. You have 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes. So, like, do your best with those 2 minutes and think about what things you need to buy or purchase or utilize to get those 2 minutes out.
Yeah. Let's talk about defining goals, because we've been talking about it so much during this. What are some realistic goals that people can have coming out of Fringe, and how can people start to learn from what you've done or what you wish you had done in that kind of planning sense?
Well, I will say, for my 2015 show with a cast of 16, a 90-minute show, my goal at the time was a goal that I did not get what I wanted, at least initially, but I got even more out of it in the long run. And what I mean by that is my goal was I just really wanted an award. I want to be recognized by the theater community. Like I've worked so hard to be seen in it, and I've never really felt like I had a space. And so I was just that's all I just want to get one little nod or one little nom. And it didn't happen. My show did not get a single laurel, but that doesn't matter. That was a beautiful year for me, because it really taught me, because I came out with over 100 friends. And I was I don't need some laurel to to say that the show was good. Somebody else needed it and they got it. And I hope that gave to them the thing they needed in that moment. And so in terms of the goal, I actually did accomplish it, because the goal was to feel more entrenched or have a better understanding of the theater community in LA. And I did get that. I did get it. I also at the time was able to say, I know what I want to do to change it. And I say that in a loving way, because I love theater so much, and it is a part of my lifeblood, that I feel more theater, more LA theater, just more and more of a vibrant scene has always been my goal. Yeah. And so this year and years prior, I was able to readjust the framework, little young me with a different goal, and older me now. Last year when we did the Hollywood Fringe showcase, my goal was to put on a really refined, fun show and get the chance to perform. I hadn't done it in 20 years, and I'm a writer predominantly. And my goal was let's get the show in shape to go to Edinburgh. I want to know how audience reactions are. I want to know where we can tighten. I want to know how to get the show, if the show works in the round. I had all these questions. And Hollywood Fringe became such a beautiful, perfect place to sort of like a toddler figuring out its legs. So that way when we brought it overseas, it was running like a tight ship. We already knew the show in and out. So there was not a hesitation. So we got exactly what we wanted out of it last year, which is why it was such a success all around. So this place, it can be amazing if you know what you're doing. So.
Yeah, I think I had a similar. The pandemic is such a bummer that we're all, so much stuff is going on still. But I just wanted to get out there again. I was feeling real antsy, and my big goal was let's go and have a good time. And I did. I went and I had a really good time. And I think that probably is the best goal you can have. I would also say that in the past, I had a good friend of mine who sort of was the producer. And he is now an animator he does murals for Walmart and stuff like that. He doesn't have time. He's no longer interested in producing. So this was a way. Last year was me going, I'm gonna try, and I might make some mistakes.
Yeah.
Maybe I won't. I did. But you learn a lot, and then now I'm only doing my one-man show again this year, but I've got other producing projects, and maybe something will come back to Fringe the year after that. And I learned a lot. Like there's no better space to learn, no better place to make those mistakes than at the Fringe.
It is a really good space to be able to fail too, because like you kind of didn't. You got your show up, and like I feel like sometimes when you have like more producing partners and you're not self-producing, it is almost harder to fail in those moments because like you're letting other people down, you know. So it is a good space to take some risks because like at worst you're like ramen for a month. But speaking of not having ramen for a month, how do you take care of yourself during the process? And like, especially right now where you feel like a little bit like you've got to do it all yourself and like the world is burning and that like you're going to crush. But I really truly think that if you come at it with like, and I say this as somebody who's a workaholic, like if you're a workaholic and like you're only working, you're actually working really slow. You're actually working really inefficiently. So how do you kind of avoid that pitfall where you're so stressing yourself out that you're not being authentic or good to yourself and others?
Do you want me to take
I mean, I can go first, but I think we all know what I'm going to say.
Did you take care of yourself last year? Or no?
Not as much as I should have. My actors in my cast came up to me being like, are you okay? Yeah. You're running into the room with sweat dripping all the way down because your car broke down with a dung ball and blah, 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 blah. You know, and looking back on it, I know that sometimes my cast could smell the stress on me, and it negatively affected their experience a little bit. And I think my biggest regret is not taking care of myself more, and I was acting in it, and I wrote it, and I directed it, and all of it at the same time. Pick one, guys, and then don't do a one-man Lord of the Rings show at the same time. It was yeah. Stay hydrated. Drink a lot of water.
Yeah, I guess my first experience was much more similar to that one in 2015. But once I started producing more and more, I sort of hit this really interesting point, and I think it also has a lot to do with just taking care of yourself outside of anything you do. This is with work, with life, with everything in your life. You should be prioritizing your body and your mental health because it's yours. It's your body. It's your mental health. But one thing I'm really grateful for, and something that actually it was a learning process because this is a good thing to know if you have other co-producers on with you. Everybody, if you're the lead producer as well, everybody works differently, which obviously, yes, you know that, right? From like a managerial standpoint. But when it comes to the Fringe, girl, you cannot overplan. You cannot, because you will drive yourself nuts. Like, things will go wrong. Set yourself up for success best you can, but don't overthink it. Just let it go. Live in the moment more and more, as much as you possibly can. Have faith and trust in your ability to get things done, right? Yeah. I think that's very important here, okay? Don't overthink. One of the things that helped me the most were two things, and this is a very personal thing, so it may not apply to everybody else, right? For me, I started incorporating breath work into my life. And a lot of people don't know what that is. I'm now certified in it, woo. But it's literally just learning how to breathe deeply, to manage your feelings and your emotions and like process things. And it creates such a beautiful center. It's like, it can be like meditation in certain ways, but it's just a different style and technique. And for somebody whose brain runs really fast, breath work works better for me. So breath work always helped. The second thing was, and this is where me and my co-producers had issues with last year. The cast was all great, everything was great, but the co-producing, there was tension in it. It's because for the first time in my life, I was not going to not allow myself to feel something. That was new. If I was stressed, I said I need 5 minutes. I would walk away and I would be stressed. I would cry. I would feel what I needed to feel. Because when you don't allow yourself to feel your emotions, if you're stressed, overwhelmed, sad, scared, frustrated, if you don't allow yourself to go through those feelings, 5-minute waves, it like becomes even more stressful, even more depression. So you gotta feel it and then you come back. And they thought something was wrong. They were asking me, are you okay? And my answer was always like, yeah, I'm doing great. Like, I just had a 5-minute cry session. Let's get back to work. And I think they were not used to that. And so they were highly concerned that I was not okay. But actually, for the first time in my life, I was, which is why last year's producing was so great. Like, it was like smooth sailing. It took a while to get there. But I just share that because it's different, right? I don't think everybody can see that process. And so I'm really glad I got to this point after, making theater for over 8 years.
And it's so crazy because we all handle stress like so differently, and naturally we handle stress so differently. And as a co-production team, we get it. It is going to be, let's talk about relationships for a second, because I actually think this is an interesting question and an interesting point. Like, how do you work with one another, especially when you're like working with one close co-producer or maybe two, but like your core team, like how do you name in those moments like I'm stressed, also while acknowledging no small children are harmed and it's fucking theater, you know what I mean? Like, but in the moment you're like, my whole world is burning. So like, how do you deal with that in that small setting?
I guess I always just try to give context to be like, I know this is how I work. I know this is how my brain functions. I know this is how my body functions. It may look different to you. You might process your stress or your anxiety a different way. Just know that your red flags don't have to go off here. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I am not trying to create a response in you in any way. This is for me. Yeah. And I think just like trying to articulate that, maybe not everybody can understand that, but you do your best to say it over and over again when you're in a healthy, even spot, when you're feeling clear and you're feeling good. And then you just move forward from there. And I think for me, it's a learning process, right? Like, some people will understand that and some people really struggle with that. So it's about finding the right energy matches. One thing I will say is that working with somebody in Fringe who you've already worked with before is a huge blessing. If you've worked with them, literally, if they're like a friend of yours that you've done work with at work, who knows, or if you've already done a different show with them, if you've done sketch with them, having that rapport, like knowing that the two of you work well together, it helps a lot because you're already over those hills.
Yeah. And I also think working with people, if you don't know them yet, working with somebody that you want to work with on more than just this project is always such a good idea, because I feel like you're going to go through so much together that like having somebody that's only going to work on this one thing with you might not be a good investment for either of you. Riley, what about you?
Yeah. It's you're gonna get emotional at a lot of points during this thing. You have to just remember that none of it's personal.
Yeah.
This is the nature of the thing. And earlier I said that some people were worried about me during my production. Those people are all still my friends to this day. Yeah. It didn't destroy any of the relationships. And if we weren't getting that stressed out or heated, then maybe more stuff wouldn't have worked out. It is sort of the nature of the beast.
Especially in an underfunded, let's just name an underfunded reality that is Los Angeles arts. And I hate to say it, but it really is, everybody's coming from the same place. Your venues, Hollywood Fringe, ourselves, it's not like there's this huge ecosystem of small theater here. It just isn't. And so it is kind of disrupting and realizing that it is harder than it should be. It shouldn't be this hard. It is true that you shouldn't have to feel these feelings.
Not yet.
Not yet. One day we will disrupt. It is getting better. I mean, there's a lot more funding than we've ever had, you know? And like there's been a lot more things. Not just us, but the whole theater scene as a whole. Like the whole theater scene is finally talking about how unsustainable this is. So
I would like to add also though, it's not the relationships you garner with your cast and your crew and the people you're working with are very important, but also go to other shows, meet other people, see other shows, and if you like a show, afterwards go tell the people you like that show, then maybe you'll get to work with them in the future. I am currently on an improv team that is like 50% French people I met last year. Jill Young, who did the Macbeth show last year, I've been working with a lot recently, writing and stuff. It's just great to meet other people out there, so keep your eyes open because it's not just your group.
and eat food. Don't forget to eat. That's like number one. If you forget to eat, you're going to work slow and you're going to be annoyed. Should we take some questions? Yeah. Any questions? I'm going to... Kathy is going to come over. If you want to raise your hand, Kathy will come over and give a mic. I promise there's enough time.
My name is Linnea Pramel. I have a question for the lady who had the cast, so many of the cast members. Where do you find cast members, and do you pay them?
So for me,
Another question too afterwards.
So for me, I was lucky in that there's a mixture, and I was very upfront with my cast this past year, which was the payment is going to be like us taking care of your housing and your flight to Edinburgh. I'm sorry. That's what I can afford. That's it. So if you can be cool with that, if this is like a lifetime thing you want to do, much like me, like I want to go to Edinburgh so bad and put on a show there, I will do everything in my ability to get something in that direction. And there were so many people who were absolutely okay with that, who are extremely talented, and they knew that up front. The biggest thing is being so upfront with the people that you're getting involved with. My 2015 year, because it was equity, they knew. I was like, okay, it's a $100 stipend for this many shows, and that's what I can afford. And they completely understood it because they're like, and we're all still like best friends. We still all hang out, everybody from that 16-person cast, which is pretty crazy. But like, I just feel like there's a mixture of just pure unadulterated honesty, and you have to do approach, like if you're coming from like a top-down hierarchy, it ain't gonna work. Does that make sense? Like, this is not the place for that. This is a place where everyone is working on, checking their ego and being like, this is for a bigger cause, for a bigger artists movement. And because of that, I put out calls on Facebook. That was great. So I made a cast list on Facebook saying, like, I need people like this. I hit up friends locally who I knew might have good referrals. That's how we found like 3 members of our cast. And actually, for my 2015 show, which was much bigger, I did put it on Backstage. And I got tons of responses. And that's how I found like half of my cast, who again are all like friends that I've had now for almost 10 years. So I cast out a wide net, and see what I did there? I'm a writer. I cast out a wide net, and I was able to sort of filter from there. But don't cast out too big unless you really need to find specific talent.
How did I find my cast? They were all my friends. But yeah, I thought that was.
It was specifically for me. Yes.
They didn't care.
Before we move on, I do want to name that there's this law. It's called AB5, and it's really, really been hard for people to be able to pay independent contractors because of that. But really, the amount that you're paying people in Fringe, and I am not a lawyer. I am not these sorts of things. But guess what? In the Fringe website, there is a place that this lawyer put together this whole presentation about how you can reimburse volunteers for their time. And that is how you will get around that law, but you're going to need to like really like look in the language there and make sure that the way that you're advertising things complies with the law. So they will be volunteers. That doesn't mean you can't reimburse them for gas. That doesn't mean that you can't reimburse them for food costs. You can't give per diems. You can't give these sorts of things. So you're just going to have to switch your language out from being like a stipend to those sorts of legal things. And It's in the Fringe website. We'll make sure it goes out in the participant. It's in the participant packet itself as well. It is also going out in the chat of the live stream here. Look up, you can Google Hollywood Fringe AB5 and the article will come up. Please read that and make sure that you're following that law.
One more simple question. When you use flyers, are they just 8.5 by 11?
That's paper sized, right? 8.5. They're smaller, usually 5x7s or 6x4s is what I usually do. You can also get really inventive. Like if your show is about feeling small, make a really small flyer. Yeah, get fun with it.
Yeah, I think mine were postcard sized. I also had little business cards. For my flyers took a while to make. One of the best things I saw was there was a show last year that had Yanni in the name. It was a South Asian vagina monologues. Yeah. Yoni, the South Asian vagina monologues. Great show. And they had little bracelets, and they just handed out little bracelets to everybody with the show on it. And everybody wanted the bracelets because they were cool. And a lot of people saw that show. That show won something, I think.
They had there was the bracelet, and then attached to was a QR code, and that QR code went to their website, and I think they had multiple, so you could collect them or something. That's a common thing in marketing.
Different colored ones for each actor, and you can use. They had a raffle at the end of the show with the bracelets. Yeah, it was really good marketing.
Yeah, they brought the show around and they've had extensions, and I have been wanting to see it as well, but it tends to sell out. So
That was a good one. I loved it. One of my faves.
I mean, we bought tiny little avocado people and started handing them out, and we had interactables within our show. So we would select it was never actually pre-selected. The actor would choose somebody in the moment, but we would gift audience members certain things, which I think was really fun. And it works really well for marketing. If somebody takes a little photo with their little avocado person and shares it, it's a fun little trinket.
We had everybody come on. We had the audience come on stage and dance with us at the end of the show, and we would try to get people to film that so we could put that on Instagram as well. I also am someone who hates Instagram. It's really hard for me to do it, and the way I basically did it was I said but one bug fact a day, and I was putting up just pictures of bugs and making up fake bug facts. And some people enjoyed the campaign. I don't know how successful it was, but it was a way to make it fun for me so I could at least keep doing it, because otherwise I wouldn't have done it. So if you can find a way to make the Instagram as painless for you as possible, that's, I think, fun.
Other little things that people have done for marketing, just because I know y'all are budgeting for these things right now. There was a dog show last year that did poop bags that was really popular. And these are things that they didn't necessarily give out to everyone, but maybe somebody that they wanted to have a deeper connection with or that kind of thing. There was a show a couple of years ago that was a 90s themed TV show thing, and they were giving out little 90s toys, and you would do a little quiz, and if you got something right, then you would get to pick your either a pog or a little troll or those kind of 90s things. Oh, my cat has, so I have a cat that plays with this pig. I have no idea what show this was, but it was a show 2 or 3 years ago. Then there was they gave out little squeaky pigs. Really, a blood pig. My cat plays with your little pig all the time, and I still keep it. So there's little things. I would say just don't create waste. Really smart people. One time, one idea that Lois and I had that worked really well one time was we had a No Fringe Central one year, and nobody knew we were having a party this one night, and so we just decided the night before we were going to walk around Hollywood Boulevard giving people pieces of candy that we knew, people in the Fringe community, giving them pieces of candy with the information about the next night's party, and it's how we got people to this party that we had 0 tickets sold. And so it's just you can and it was 99 cents worth of candy, and we knew that the people were getting it too. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Christina Might, plays The Road to Nowhere, and my question is about industry comps. So, I I see, like, for your PDF example where you had the $15 ticket and the $10. So would industry comps, can you just have a discount code that is just $0 and you can just have unlimited, and then when because she wants to send like a package out, and that's great, but that's not how I would do it because they can't keep track, But and then also, I guess if people come just kind of wander in, should we have like a chunk that's not on the Fringe site for walk-ins for those types of things?
I'll answer the industry stuff, and then you guys can talk about holding tickets. For industry, there's like 3 types of industry that you're gonna have. You're gonna have like the industry that comes from the Hollywood Fringe, from our industry program, and there's a way that they can reach out to you directly. Then when like you have a person, or like say this person reaches out to you, but they didn't like reserve a comp through either this discount code at $0 that you could enter in. But they like come to you. There's a place on the ticketing site where you can add in your own comps as well, so you can comp them on either end. And you're probably gonna have to do both. You're probably gonna have like a comp code that you give out to people, and you're gonna have to enter in comps still, because no matter how many codes you give somebody, they might not do it. And then on the holding tickets.
Oh yeah, I never held any tickets other than like putting aside those like 4 or 5 press and industry comps that I would always have on the side. Otherwise, it was just sell as many as I could prior to the show, because you can always get people to walk in to fill seats, which is great if you want that. But my goal is to sell ahead always. So I wouldn't put something aside unless there's a specific reason, like bad example, there's like a bus of kids coming in, and you know that this bus of kids will not buy their tickets ahead of time, but they'll come anyway. So just try your best to always sell ahead is what I say.
If you send emails to industry people, you might get some last minute things here or there, but generally the industry people will email you a week before the show to say, hey, I'm planning on coming this night. So even if you don't already have tickets set aside for them, if you haven't sold out, you should very easily be able to set a couple aside. As far as like people coming in late, if you have someone working the door, you just have to have someone set up, plan someone, get a friend to stand in front of the door. When I was doing my one-person show over there, I didn't bother getting friends to do the front of the show every day. So if someone wandered in late, they didn't pay, and I was okay with that, and that that was that silly little thing I was doing over there. If you want someone to be in charge of that, at least for the Broadwater, you would need to have someone on your own team there. It might be different in other spaces.
Check with your venue for sure when it comes to like late seating, because usually they'll have best practices that they know of that they've seen work well in their space.
Hi, I'm Sam. My solo show is Sam. And my question's about, maybe for you, Ellen, actually. It's for crowdfunding. I actually did use Seed and Spark and crowdfunded for a film, and I did do incentives, and it was because I felt guilty that people gave me money and I wanted to give them something in return. Do you recommend incentives for crowdfunding?
Yeah, I mean, I crowdfunded for my first 2015 Fringe show. It was, I didn't over ask on it. I just wanted to raise $2,000, and to be completely frank, most of it was just like friends and family. Like, it didn't really go beyond that. And a lot of it did have to do with what you're talking about. Crowdfunding is a whole production unto itself. You're putting on 2 shows with that one. So really think about that, like that is a secondary level of performance and having to market and having to get the word out. And that's, there's percentages taken out. Then people never calculate correctly the amount that it's going to cost to create the reward system that it is. People usually underfinance that. So you need to think very smart about how you want to approach your reward system. And then sometimes people overpromise on like, oh, I'll write you a song or whatever. That takes a lot of work. You're gonna be like spending 15 hours a week on your rewards. Like, is that really worth it at the end of the day, or is your time more valuable? So just thinking about like the cost benefit reward for you specifically. Some people, I got friends like Laser, like I got friends like from Star Kid who like they literally say, okay, we need money, and people like give them money. I don't know how it works. It's slightly magical, and they have their own fan bases, and I'm lucky that I have my fan bases too. But I'm also I'm a firm believer in this is something that may not be true, but I'm going to say it anyway. You can only crowdfund once. You can only ask for money once. What are you going to ask for money for? Like, for me, I want to save that. I want to have that in my back pocket for when something essential comes up. And until then, I'm going to work on raising the money myself, or saving myself, or finding inventive ways to raise money, lemonade stand, like whatever. Like, I'll do it so the exchange is quick and isn't over my head in terms of overthinking. It's just how my brain works.
Yeah, I've definitely overpromised in the crowdfunding before and had to just like make hundreds of popcorn bags that you then have to send to someone. Not worth it. The one piece of advice I'd give on that, last crowdfunding we did for Bugs, we wrote in the thing, no prizes will be given unless you email us requesting the prize. Not a single person requested anything. So I think if you just put in your thing, hey, you got to ask for this if you want it, you might end up sending out 4 or 5 things instead of 20. Now, if 20 people end up asking for the thing because you promised a cool thing, then you still got to do a bunch of crap. But if if you're giving crap prizes, then maybe no one will want anything.
I really think that that's true. And like, we've done a lot of fundraising, and people do not care about the stuff that comes with it. They really don't. They really want to give to you. And I think I would not, as a person and as somebody who's a fundraiser, like think that somebody not putting in levels of things they're going to do for me for $5 is like a front. Maybe at 500, like maybe there's things that you can write in at these like higher levels, and maybe that's how you can incentivize it being less like for $5. We have a question over here.
Hi, my name is Chaz. My show is Pythia, and I am really appreciative of all of the marketing suggestions and the tips. Understanding that fundraising is a component of marketing, do you have anything that you can share that either you've done or that you've heard other people do in the realm of fundraising that were epiphanies or things that were creative in that regard? I know, I've done the crowdfunding thing. I'm done with that. Like you said, you kind of do it once and you realize like, okay, moving on. But what other things have come to mind?
I will say for some other shows that I've done, again, it depends on what your show is. For me, we were able to do like cabarets. We were able to do concerts sometimes, sing a couple songs and ask for some donations. You got that skill set, and even if your show's not all up and ready to go, you can sing a song and ask for some money. It's great, and a great also marketing ability, because people get to hear your incredible cast voices and get excited about maybe coming to see your show. In terms of like fundraising, I know some people who did, this is different. I have to speak more to like Edinburgh at the moment, but like street stuff is huge there. So if you it is how you can raise money with a capital M. So if you can do good sets on the street, if you can like play the violin, if you can do ballerina, like anything and everything. If you dress up like a statue and just stand there, like people will literally throw money at your feet. I was helping take this one performer who I became friends with out there. We did an exchange. This is something that you should look into, by the way, to save money on photography. I found out that some fellow folks in the Fringe were photographers like me. And I was like, great, I'll come to your show. I'll snap some photos for you during your show. You come to my show, you snap some photos, we got great photos for our show, and that's great for marketing, right? So don't hesitate to do that during both your tech and your run, right? So that way they're not, they can take photos wherever they want to go and walk around maybe. like especially during the early runs, the early part of your run. And I was taking photos with this person, and they were just walking around in their costume, which was very visual. And they had to put their bag down to just, take photos with me. And people just started throwing money in their bag because they were wearing a cool costume. Like they were not even trying to perform. So when you think about how much people are willing to give when you put yourself out there as an artist, like think in terms of like LA, what does that look like? Like, please don't go to Hollywood and Highland and do any of this. But in terms of fundraising, you can get inventive. If your show is about, a very difficult topic, it could be about health issues or whatever, maybe you could like reach out to local businesses and try to do something like a silent auction. You can say, hey, half the proceeds are going to be going to my show and half the proceeds are going to be going to XYZ charity. It would be very beneficial for like everyone involved. If could you donate like a bag of beans, and can we do like a silent auction, maybe a digital auction, to see how I can raise money? Like, don't hesitate to try to find sponsors in town, whether it be businesses that align with your show. If you have an online community and you have a platform digitally, don't hesitate to reach out to businesses that would actually like sync well. That's a big thing in Edinburgh Fringe, finding sponsors. Like, if it means that you have to break open a seltzer and drink one on your stage, like, who knows? But just as a thought, I want to like throw out more ideas to fundraise and get money going, so that way you feel supported.
Yeah, I don't know how much I have to add to that. I know some people have had success with the party thing of if you have a nice venue, you buy alcohol for people, sell tickets, have someone sing or something. I believe Roddy did that a couple of times last year. But other than that, yeah, I think, in my experience, your best bet is finding someone to donate a significant amount of money. That if you get $1,000 closer, that makes a really big difference,
So we've seen so many different things people have done, and I think you can watch this panel and also all of the other panels from every year from 2014 on. So you can also see all of the different ideas that people have brought to Fringe for many years. Like one person, Sophie Khan, her show was Mexistani. She bought the Fringe back cover and then like half sold it out to a business, so that she got that business paid for that guide cover. She was the back of the guide and put like the half of it was her show and half of it was the business, and that business paid for the ad. You know what I mean? There's like these like really smart things, and the reason that she was able to do that is because she was a marketing like expert. Like that was like her day job, and so it's really about figuring out what your skill set is. Is your skill set in tech? So like, how could you utilize that? Could you be like, oh, I can build QLab files like nothing else. There's going to be people in this room that would kill for you to help them with their QLab file for a very, very cheap rate. And that could be like a great way for you to make that extra capital. Are you a graphic designer? Could you swap some things? Like swapping skill sets and skill set sharing is so important. Yeah, bless you. So sorry. Bless for your health. I think it's really important to just figure out what your skill set is. Do we have any other questions before we take off? Okay, yeah, we have enough time for both, I think.
Hi, my name is Ivo Miller. I'm with a show called Rilke. And I first I wanted to tell a thing. I have a son who plays soccer, and they did a raffle to pay for one of the tournaments. And the prizes were like a soccer ball and a soccer jersey, and they raised so much money. So that's maybe something we could do. I don't know if you guys have experience with raffles. And my question was, one of you mentioned something about not submitting to the prizes, and regretted that. So you have to submit to that. That's a thing I didn't know, and just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
Raffles are illegal in the state of California, so just make sure you call it an opportunity drawing.
So there are like 40 awards, 90 awards, 200 awards. There's a lot of awards, and you have to apply. You have to apply for them individually. So on the website, there's a list of the awards, and you have to read each one, see if it is similar to your show in a way, and then apply for it if it is. If you don't do that, the only award you could possibly win is Best Comedy.
The awards list will come out in mid-May. We don't have an exact date on that because we literally are finding them up until the day that we close the application, and then we open it up and like all of them are in a portal. But you will get many emails about it, and people will ignore them. So I think one of the biggest things I can remind you is don't stop reading your emails in May. It is the most important time to be reading your emails, which everybody does. It's not just you.
Hi. This is a just super simple clerical question. I'm Anna, by the way. This is TC, my writing partner. We do a show called The Conduct Apartments, as currently advertised. I was just wondering, so I was looking up office hours and like how to go to those sorts of events, and I was kind of having a hard time finding it on the website. So where would that be listed? Is it?
The dates are listed right now, but we haven't booked them yet.
Okay.
because we are two people.
Right.
There's two people that work year round, and it's me and Lois, and we're onboarding our team right now.
Okay,
good. Office hours begins the last weekend or the last week of March, and it runs every single Wednesday at different bars around Hollywood. Some of them serve food, which means if you're under 21, you can go to it. Some of them don't, which means that you have to be 21 to go. We will be very clear about which are which. And that list should come out mid-March. But all the dates are already there, and they're in our events blog. And how everybody should remember this. It's hollywoodfringe.org/events. And that is where you can get every single event. And that's where we will continue to update things as well. Anything else before we go?
Did either of you live stream your shows?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And what was your experience? Were you happy with it?
I do not live stream my shows. I have considered live streaming certain shows because that's what would be the best way to like get the show out. But it, again, really depends on your show. Some people's shows, live streaming could be an incredibly smart thing to do for it. There's this one show right now in a fringe happening in Australia, and a friend of mine saw it, and I got so excited about seeing the show that like I asked for the live stream code so I could watch it in the US. So like live stream can help you reach an audience you were not expecting, like a little tiny girl in LA from Australia. So just again thinking about what's best for you.
I believe we did one show, but not a lot of people watched it or used it. It sort of was not that effective of a live stream. However, since then, I've continued doing live streaming for some of my improv shows and live shows, and it seems like a big difference maker in that is using an account that has already been used for live streaming. So if you are like creating a new live streaming event and this is the first thing that you're live streaming, it's going to be pretty hard for people to find it. But if you already have a live streaming audience, or you are able to use someone else's live streaming platform to try to get some of their audience, I think that will greatly increase your amount of live stream viewers.
And to be clear, if you do choose to live stream through Hollywood Fringe's ticketing site, you can sell live stream tickets separate from your normal tickets. So there is that ability. And every single venue has worked with live stream technicians and now is very familiar with this in a post-COVID world. So I would really talk to your venue about it, see what they have as suggestions. Some of them have it built in to like, hey, we offer this. And some people are like, we don't offer this, but we know contractors that do. There's also people in our participant packet if you're interested in that. But I agree. I think it's very unique to what you want. And I think you need to have an audience that you're looking to send that to rather than getting a new audience from live stream. I think it's more about I already have an audience somewhere else that I want to give stuff to.
And we got one more question. And by the way, you can hear me on this mic. We're shooting at the Broadwater through the first time on Wi-Fi. So if you bring your own streaming gear, it works right here without cables.
Woo! All right. Got 2 minutes. We're gonna nail this in 2 minutes.
Okay, quick and easy one. I'm Soph. Our project's called Van Life. I'm curious about, actually kind of related to that question, providing a recording of the play as potentially like a reward for something like a crowdfunding thing. Like, have people done something like this or sold even like a very cheap ticket, if you know you're going to get the recording done by the second week, and then people can watch a digital version of it for like a really cheap price. I know they do that with other events I've seen before. Yeah.
I have a different, again, recording and then offering it as like a reward thing. That is a ticket, like, and it could be an indefinite ticket to your show. So I always think, like, what do you need from your show? For me, recording my shows for archival purposes and for marketing purposes is like essential. Like, I need it. Sometimes when you're applying to different fringes around the world too, you need to have evidence of the things that you've done and the success you've had and how you put on a show. So it's always good to have a video recording of your show in some capacity, just for your own sake too, and for your own memories. But I will say that, like, for me, recording and putting out a recording of my show, that would be actually less beneficial for my shows. It's just because of how my shows are, because they're works in progress. Like, nothing's quite done or super refined, at least for me, because I have big dreams and I want to bring things in fun places. And so I like to think that I would rather do the show again than like have a recording.
I think I would agree. And also, I would reiterate, like, you want to make it seem like you're offering something to these people, but you don't really want to have to give them a bunch of stuff.
We were already planning to make one, is the reason that if there were any extra work involved, I wouldn't consider it at all. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've seen that, and I think it could work if that's like, but it would cut off the people that might want to like go see the ticket. So I think it's like balancing that. I also want to name that before we leave, that Laser, who's been mentioned a couple of times, is like a crowdfunding guru. He couldn't be here tonight, but I think he runs his own workshop that is like an affordable thing if you're like really interested in how to crowdfund. So I think there's also like videos online where like a lot of professionals will do that. So I think also keep researching it if you're going to do it. And Laser's a good resource. Laser the boy, I think, is. Yeah, I'm going to go see him right now. Yeah. I love it. Okay, we're done. It's 9:01. We're going to what? Oh yes. So the Artist Fund applications close in 2 weeks, a week and a half. The 19th, thank you. I might put my computer down. I have no dates in my head. The 19th is when Artist Funds close. We are going to be out of here, but we're going to go have a drink in the plunge. If you want to come talk to us afterwards, please do. Bye. Bye.
If anyone wants to see the new Hobgoblin Playhouse that I just got keys to last Friday.
Oh, the new theater.
It's a block away. If anyone wants a tour tonight, I'm happy to do one. Just come find me. My car's in front of it anyway.
The one towards the complex, right?
Yeah. It's a block away.
If I can do a tour. Oof. I'll go tour right now.
Are you going over there now? I can.